Being born and raised in New York City, I know many people. There are people I met at school, people I met at work, people I met at parties, and people I met randomly. I never struggled to make friends, and even if it sounds stupid, I was always what you would call popular. But despite knowing a whole bunch of people, I have always had a best friend. His name was Jack. Jack and I have been best friends since 8th grade. Most of my friends like to party, smoke, drink. Lots of them do or have done drugs, but Jack is different. Although I like all those things mentioned above, there are other things I also like. I love video games, rock music, sci-fi movies, anime, and Jack was the first person I ever met that was into all of those things. So it was cool to talk to someone who could share that side of me. Jack didn't have too many friends when he started school, but I managed to include him in my group of friends at the time, and we all got along just fine. But in a matter of months, Jack and I became the closest. When we finished school, Jack and I visited South America for 6 months. When we came back to the States, we enrolled at the university to study video game design. But not only studied together, we also decided to live together. So yeah, we were pretty close. Jack and I found a place that was about 15 minutes away from the university. When we first moved, our friend Jillian lived with us, but after a year, Jillian decided to transfer to Tennessee. Jack and I tried to find someone who could move in with us, but we couldn't, and ultimately, we put up some posters at the university looking for a new roommate. Jack and I tried to find someone who could move in with us, but we didn't. And ultimately, we had to put up some posters in the college looking for a new roommate. We were expecting lots of people to contact us, and in 2 days, we only had one person messaging us about the apartment. A dude named Wyatt. We told him to come see the apartment, and when Wyatt arrived, we noticed he was quiet, and he had a look that some people would consider weird. He basically looked like Jack and I back in 2008, before we cut our hair and started to shower regularly. You could tell Wyatt was a pothead, but I didn't care too much because I used to smoke weed before too. Wyatt was on another planet at times, but he had money and went to the same university. He also liked anime and video games, and so we decided to have him on board as our new roommate. Living with Wyatt and Jack was interesting, but I always found it funny because the two of them were opposites. Jack doesn't drink, smoke, works out constantly and is very fit, and he's very outgoing. While Wyatt is high as a kite almost all the time, spends all his time at home, except for when he goes to study or work. And you can clearly tell the most he's exercised was getting up from bed every morning. I'm sort of in the middle of the two of them. Not as straight edge as Jack, but not as laid back as Wyatt. I did have to admit that from time to time, Wyatt was very mysterious. He had a rough childhood and still had a lot of trouble at home with his mother, who apparently was a schizophrenic, and also suffers from addictions, so considering his upbringing, he's doing pretty well. One weekend it started to snow during the night, so it was too crappy to go out. Jack suggested that Wyatt and I should work on a project for the university, but Wyatt joked around. Dude, it's a Saturday night. Let's do something more interesting than just studying. Jack and I agreed that maybe it would be nice to take a break from video games, but being at home, our options on what to do were limited to games or watching something, so we asked Wyatt what he wanted to do. And that's when he suggested he had a board game and went to his room to bring it in. To our surprise, Wyatt came back with a Ouija board. He suggested for us to play it, saying that he's never done it himself, but always wanted to. And I never used a Ouija board either, but I have to admit, I was a bit nervous. However, seeing how enthusiastic Jack and Wyatt were about it, particularly Jack said he had once used it with his cousins and had a lot of fun, I eventually gave in and accepted. To make everything a little bit more mysterious, we turned off all the lights in the apartment and lit a few candles around us. And soon after we started using the Ouija board, we made contact with someone. "Are we alone?" Jack asked. "No," the spirit replied. "Who are you?" I asked. "Balthazar," he replied. "Balthazar? Are you dead?" Wyatt asked him. "Yes," was the answer. How long have you been dead for?" Jack said during his turn. 200 years, Balthazar said. When it was my turn, I asked him if he was innocent, but all of a sudden, the pointer moved quickly towards no. So far, the pointer had only moved slowly, so it creeped me out a little bit, but I didn't say anything to Jack or Wyatt. Now, Wyatt asked how he died, and Balthazar replied that he had been killed where we were standing. Jack asked how exactly he was killed. The spirit answered it was in revenge. I was already a little bit nervous because there was something about the atmosphere that I didn't like, but I was encouraged by Wyatt and Jack to keep asking questions. "Why are you here?" I asked the spirit. "I want your souls," he rapidly answered. Right after this, I flipped the board over. "I'm not going to use this anymore," I said as I got up and started walking around the room nervously. Wyatt insisted we should keep using it, but I refused. He then said we should at least clear the board, but I didn't want to be anywhere near that thing. "If you don't exit, something bad could happen. He won't go away," Wyatt kept telling me as he insisted for us to keep on using it. In an attempt to smooth things over, Jack said not to worry about it. He kept saying nothing bad would happen because it was clear it was just all a prank Wyatt was doing. I asked him what he meant by this, and he said that maybe Wyatt had been moving the pointer, which he obviously denied, and kept saying that it was the spirit. Wyatt and Jack got into an argument in the corner of the room. Jack was saying ghosts weren't real, while Wyatt was defending that they were. I always thought that ghosts were real, spirits. I've never been one to feel afraid of being alone, for example, or going to cemeteries, watching horror movies, or anything like that, but trying to get into touch with a ghost was another thing. I remember my grandma always telling me that trying to contact the dead was bad, because only bad spirits reply back. So yeah, I kinda regret having to use the Ouija board, but to be honest, I always thought that the board was not a big deal, and it was only people moving the pointer to scare their friends. In all honesty, I didn't think that this was the case this time. After some debating about ghosts and watching some YouTube videos of allegedly real ghost appearances, we went to sleep, and that was that. The next day, when I woke up, I was going to take my medication, which I normally have to take before I eat breakfast, but I couldn't find it anywhere, which was very rare because I always kept it in the same place. I kept it right on the night table that's next to my bed. I looked and looked, but I couldn't find it. However, I was in a hurry because Jack and I had plans to go for brunch. Later on, when I came back, I decided to look for my pills again, just to see that they were on the floor, in a spot that I was sure that I looked before. I was annoyed, but well, it happens sometimes. Over the next week, I started feeling very strange. For some reason, I began feeling very stressed out all the time. I couldn't concentrate. I felt hopeless. And overall, I had this random sensation as if someone else was with me all of the time. I stopped doing good in college, but not because I was lazy, but because every single time I had to do an exam or work on a project, I had this voice in my head distracting me. This voice became more regular and started to affect my life. At first, the voice would simply distract me from things. Whenever I had to study or talk to someone, the voice would always be so loud that I lost my focus. Then the voice started saying random things at odd times, which made me feel stressed out. But then the worst happened. The voice began to order me to do things, and for some reason, I felt obligated to comply. I was 100% sure that the voice was Balthazar. It made sense. All of this started right before we playing with the Ouija board. The voice was evil, and I could tell he was trying to take over my soul, just like Balthazar said he would. Jack asked me plenty of times what was wrong with me, but Balthazar ordered me not to answer him. So I just said it was only stress. Jack didn't believe in ghosts or anything related with the paranormal, and I knew I was going crazy. I just didn't want others to know. So one day, I was coming home from the university. I was alone and not far away from home when Balthazar told me I had to pee on the door of this one particular building. I did it, and then I ran away. But it didn't stop there. I kept doing so for 3 days. The 4th day, I got caught peeing. This guy looked out from the balcony and yelled at me. "Man, what the fuck are you doing?" But he was so young. Plus, he was so far away. I mean, what was he going to do? I thought as I kept peeing, and then he'd call his mother, who saw me and started yelling at me. When I saw the infuriated woman, I decided to run away. But I went straight to my apartment that was only 2 buildings away. And quickly after I got into my apartment, someone knocked on the door. I opened only to find the woman and her son standing at the door. "Why the hell are you peeing on other people's property? What is wrong with you? Have you no shame, no manners?" the woman yelled. I was so ashamed, for a few seconds I couldn't even speak. My mind was going crazy. I wanted to speak, but Balthazar kept distracting me, saying awful things like telling me to kill her. "What are you talking about, ma'am? You must have the wrong person," Wyatt said to her. "Someone's been peeing on my building door for a few days now, and today my son caught him," the woman told them. She was pointing at me. "That's impossible," said Jack. "No, I saw him, and you better do something about it before I call the police," the woman screamed. "I'm sorry. It wasn't me, really. Well, it was me, but then it wasn't. I didn't want to do it, I swear. It was Balthazar. He made me do it. He's in my head all the time," I told her, almost in tears. At this point, the woman must have felt sorry for me. Maybe she thought I was crazy, which wouldn't be the strangest thing, because she quickly left with her son. "I won't call the police or tell anybody, but he has to stop doing this, and someone has to come clean that piss off of the door. Today," she said before leaving. When she left, both Wyatt and Jack spoke to me, and I told them everything that had been going on. They both seemed very concerned, but had different ideas. Jack thought I was having some sort of mental breakdown and that I needed to go to the hospital or maybe even call a therapist. Wyatt, on the other hand, worried that it was, in fact, Balthazar trying to hurt me. Eventually, Wyatt and Jack had an argument about ghosts and demons again. Eventually, Wyatt said he was going to the woman's building to clean the mess, while Jack should stay with me. Jack and I were alone, and he kept telling me how I should agree to go at least to my parents' house, and after some time I agreed. I went to take a shower, and when I got out, I noticed that Jack was in my room, packing my stuff. He said he was helping me pack my suitcase, but I got so mad he decided to pack without me. And in the back of my head, that voice was telling me Jack was trying to steal my stuff. And even though it sounds ridiculous, I screamed at Jack and I accused him of that. "Tom, I've known you for ages. Why in the hell would I want to steal from you?" he said. But my mind was out of control again. I was convinced that this was the truth. I started to yell at him while he was still patient and trying to tell me that I needed help. I pushed him and he fell. "That's it, Tom. I'm going to call the doctor right now," he said. But before he even had the chance of getting up, I grabbed the lamp and hit him in the back of the head. He began to bleed and I freaked out. I wanted to run away, but Wyatt came home before I could. He helped me check Jack, and as suspected, I had killed him. I told him what happened and begged him not to call the police. He said he wouldn't, and that when the night came, he would go hide the body somewhere. He explained that we needed to dispose of it. He said we would cut him into pieces and then drive to this lake outside the city and throw him in there. He told me to go and have some rest for the moment. When I woke up, it was nighttime already, but for some reason, I felt normal. And I was devastated because of what I did. My mind was clear for the first time in a month. I started to think how creepy some things Wyatt suggested were, and how he kept smiling when he saw Jack's dead body. So I decided to ask him about it. Wyatt didn't even bother hiding anything. He said he was glad Jack died because he had never liked him, and that our apartment was better without him. I asked him if he had planned all of this all along. He said yes. I asked him how, but he just said it was Balthazar helping him. But I knew it was all bullshit now. I punched him, knocking him out, and then I called the police. When they arrived, I told him everything, and both of us got arrested. But once Wyatt woke up, the truth unfolded. It turns out, Wyatt had been slipping his mom's medication to me. He changed my thyroid pills for some of his mom's medication. The medicine caused me to hallucinate and eventually have a psychotic breakdown. They found out through all the tests they had given me. And also because Wyatt had confessed. But why did he do it? According to him, because he couldn't stand preppy students like Jack, who thought they were better than him. This was not the truth whatsoever. Jack was the kindest soul on earth, and Wyatt was just a psycho. It turns out Wyatt wasn't even a student at the university. He just happened to be there all the time, selling drugs and following people. I was found guilty for manslaughter, put into prison. Wyatt, on the other hand, is also in jail now, not only because of orchestrating what happened to Jack, but apparently he was convicted of another murder. I'm glad to know that after all, I'm not crazy, but I'll never forgive myself for what happened to Jack. There was an evil presence living in my house, but it was not a ghost. It was a human. Next time, I'll be careful who I let into my life. But I'm sure of one thing. I'll never live with strangers anymore.